Hello, and we are live. My name is Argifantes with Team Aretuza, and with me I have Jamedi from Team Nova, and we're going to review the new Syndicate set for you guys. So today we're going to do all the gold cards, and tomorrow at the same time we're going to do the bronzes and the leaders. Yep, so basically we're going to talk about the card, discuss, and then kind of rate everything on a point scale of sorts. So let's just go ahead and take a look at the point scale. So at 5.0, we have meta-defining cards. These are the cards that kind of shape the meta around them. Cards like Glusty, like Sheldon, Svalblood Priest. Cards in basically the strongest decks and force your opponents to play decks in response to. At 4.0, we have archetype and faction staples, stuff like Svalblood Totem, Asir, and Lyrian Arbalist. These cards are very strong and reasons to be playing certain factions or certain decks, but they're not quite as game warping as the 5.0s. 3.0s are the role players. These are the cards you're going to generally see in a lot of popular decks. They're not the strongest cards necessarily in the deck, but they usually have some specific role that they play to support the strategy. 2.0, we have the niche cards you don't always see, but these cards are going to show up every now and then in a specific strategy or trying to accomplish a specific thing. And then 1.0s are cards that are not quite likely to see play. You might see them one-off here or there, but these cards we don't see as having particularly high competitive potential. So, ready to get started, Jamedi?
Yeah, perfect.
Sounds good. All right, so let's just get right to it. First card is Temboy. So.
Okay. I think this card is a little bit underrated at first sight because its potential to make a big tempo swing. It's something that we can't forget, but I think it can fulfill some function in decks that look for long rounds because it's basically a lacerate but with a body.
Right, yeah. It's actually counting the provision costs and the power of the body. It's literally lacerate with 4 points tagged on, right? And 4 more provisions.
Yeah. It's lacerate with logic.
I think we talked earlier about this, and you compared it to Oak, and that's actually like a pretty okay comparison, I think, right? Where it might be impactful enough.
It's a little bit worse than Oak because Oak is really good in short rounds, but I think this one needs 9 or 10 cards round to be good.
Yeah, I feel like if you can get like a row with 4 cards, a Timboy is probably going to be like reasonably impactful, right? You don't even need to get full provision value with a card this high. It's more just sort of pushing, just having a super impactful card, and that requires, I would say about like 4 cards in a row. Would you say?
Yeah, about 4 cards it's okay-ish.
Yeah.
We just have to remember that high provision cards usually don't feel the provision cost.
Yes. So I definitely don't think it's quite as good as something like Oak. But it doesn't need to get full value to be good, I guess,
Yeah, it's too conditional to be as good as Oak.
Yeah.
But still, I would say it's like a 3.5 card because it's not really bad to give less points, but it's not as good to be a staple of any archetype.
Yeah, I think I agree. 3.5 sounds about right. I've played against this a little bit yesterday. It seems like because the rounds are all going long, this card just looks insane, and it's actually just like blowing people out. But I think once the metagame kind of stabilizes a little bit and we have like certain decks, it is susceptible to being bled, and there are enough weaknesses that 3.5 sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I think
So,
we are in the same page.
moving on to the next card. Ooh, Siggy Rubin.
Dijkstra.
Is there even anything we need to say about this?
Okay, I think this card is the most powerful in the set because it's basically a 13 for 12 in the deck builder because the condition to get 9 profit, it's so easy to fulfill.
So, for the purposes of the video, which I'll be posting on YouTube later, in case anyone wants to watch this a month down the line and make fun of her mistakes, I'm going to just run through each mechanic the first time we see it. I forgot to do it with Tim Boy, but we'll do it now. So, Intimidate is boost self by 1 for whenever you play a crime card. Profit 4 means you get 4 coins, 4 crowns when you play it on deploy. And for every unique gain category, increase the initial profit by 1. Meaning there's 5 gains in the set, and it's not really a deck building constraint, right? Because most of the gains have decent cards that you want to play. In fact, all of them, I think, have at least 1 card. So,
I think you are not really paying any cost to get the full value of Dijkstra because
I will note also the way we're evaluating kind of coins or crowns is most payoff cards are you pay 1 crown, you get 1 point of damage or 1 boost or one something on the board. So for a shorthand, we're just going to basically count profit generation as like 1 power per crown, basically. So this generates 9 coins if you have 5 gains, and it's only a 12 provision card, which is ridiculous. You get 13 provisions, and on top of that, for God knows what reason, it also has Intimidate. So it's even an engine on the board, if not like the best one.
To be honest, I haven't seen grinds played with this Siggy Rubin because as you get to the to 9 coins, you don't need grinds to generate extra coins. So Intimidate is like a little bit superfluous in this card.
Yes. my early experience is like I would get maybe 1 extra point off the Intimidate, maybe, or 2 if I'm lucky. But by itself, it's already, I think, hands down the best card in the set. 5.0 easy, right?
Yeah, 5.0, really easy.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's you can include Dijkstra in every single deck, and you will be fine because it's too good.
Yeah. And that's been my experience too. Okay, next card. This is a really fun one. Novigrad Injustice. I always have trouble with that word for some reason. Play a bronze unit from your deck. If it was a dwarf, spawn a copy of it and summon it to the same row.
Okay, I think first we have to point that this card is shared with Scoia'tael.
Yes.
So you can play it in some kind of decks, and if you can use it for thinning the deck, basically.
Yeah. This works with volunteers, if not mistaken, right? If you have 2 volunteers in your deck, or...
No, because the first one is...
Oh, the second one is summoned.
The second one is summoned.
Not considered played. Okay. Fair.
Yeah. Most of the tests that I did with this card was using a bronze of this set, Cleaver Muscle.
Yes.
Which is a 5 with shield.
Yeah.
So basically, you just play a 10 points with 1 tiny per 11 provision, which is kind of decent, but not really a practical use of the card.
Yeah, I mean, I found that the thinning is... It feels decent enough. It feels kind of like playing Roach, in the sense that, like, you're playing a high point cost card, but it does thin 1, and it's not quite as good as Roach, because Roach is basically quote-unquote free, right, whenever you play any card that pops out.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're playing a 10-point card with thinning 1 for 11 provisions. I think that's a pretty fair rate, assuming you're using this with Cleaver's Muscle or something like that. And it technically doesn't brick, even if you draw your Cleaver's Muscles, because you can just play any bronze unit, you just don't get the full value, obviously, which is not great. But, yeah, I mean, overall, I think a very solid card.
Yeah, I think it's solid, but I haven't found a real good use of this card, but probably in the next days we will find something, because 10 points plus one thinning looks good.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I think I've just been shoving this into every deck, and it's been reasonable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's not anything broken ever, but it is. Yeah, what would you say as a point value for a card like this?
yeah, it's a good card. I will say it's like a 3 because the thing that we haven't found the real use of the card, but
That's totally fair.
it's
Yeah,
good.
I think I'm gonna go a little higher. I'll give it like a 3.5. It just feels reasonably solid. You're never blown away when you play the card, but even without like a way to quote unquote break it, I think it's good enough that I'm happy always to draw it and play it. So, all right.
Okay, we can go for the next one.
Ooh, Sacred Flame. So this is the Swarm archetype. Deploy,
Yeah,
spawn a Firesworn Zealot, and summon it to both sides of this card. When you spawn a unit, boost it by 1.
I think first we have to make um, an declaration because the first two tokens that this artifact spawns are boosted. So
Yes.
at first sight, it's a 6-point card per 11 provisions, which has synergy with Swarm archetype, which you can play with, for example, Great Inquisitor, or for example, the new leader, Cyrus Hammerfall.
Yes.
I think this design remembers me to Svalbard Totem because it's a semi spell because it has a first turn thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is the spawn of the first two Zealots and the passive effect.
Yes.
I think this card is solid for the archetype, but the problem is that the archetype is itself is a little bit slow, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. I played around with it a bit today. I don't think the archetype is necessarily like weak or completely unplayable. It's just not as good as all the other stuff the Syndicate faction seems to be able to do
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
probably,
Yeah.
probably that's the thing,
Yeah.
that the archetype is
Uh-oh, looks like the
X by,
video
but
cut out a little.
nevertheless,
Oh, okay, you're back.
oh,
Sorry, go on.
okay, I
Yep.
have a little bit of lag.
Just a
I will say
tiny
this,
bit,
this
yeah.
card is about a 3
Mm-hmm.
because I think the card is good because even in the case you get remove the artifact, you get
Yes.
6 points, which is not a real bad
Mm-hmm.
floor. But still, as the archetype is not strong, I wouldn't say this card is auto include index.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think that's totally fair. Realistically, if you're playing the Swarm archetype, this card can get like I don't know, 15, 16 points of value in a long round 3. The problem is getting to that long round 3 without losing a card, without having to commit Sacred Flame early, and also playing a bunch of, I would say, weaker cards to support the Swarm to make this work. So there's a very real deck building cost to actually getting full value from this card. 3 sounds about right.
Okay.
So, next card is Horsun Senior, Intimidates. Deploy, transform an adjacent unit to a cut-up lackey. And attribute 3, transform adjacent units into cut-up lackeys instead. So, tribute means you get, on deploy, you can pay the costs to basically get a stronger deploy effect. And cut-up lackey, as we can see here, is basically a 4 power engine. Whenever you play a crime card, damage an enemy unit by 1. Bonded, so if you have 2 of them or more, increase the damage by 1. So if you have 2 of them, they do 2 damage apiece. What do you think of this? It seems interesting, but maybe a little tricky to use.
Yeah, I think you don't want to play this card without paying the tribute because the
Yes.
banded ability of Lucky is really good
Yes.
because it's basically double points. The problem of this card is that crime cards requires also some type of coin spenders because most of these cards needs
Generate coins, yeah.
generate coins.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you are becoming really low in tempo if you need to generate coins in one turn, and after that, in other turn, you play the engine. So I think it's interesting, but there are better things in the faction.
Yeah, personally, I feel like the Tribute 3 is a pretty high cost to pay. When you play this card initially, you're not really getting that many points. The Tribute 3 basically means you're getting 3 points for 10 provisions at the start, right? Loot brings up a good point in chat that this actually transforms the cards into cut up lackeys, so their power actually gets set to 4. So I guess in theory, if you have a bunch of ones, you can get like plus 3 points on this card. Or if you like play like a congregation or something and have like 2s, then this card could technically be worth plus 4 points if you have like 2 2s that you're transforming. So it is a tricky setup though, and the cost is a bit high compared to the rest of the faction. Again, I hate to say it, but
Yeah,
it does feel a little
that's
weak.
the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. That the whole faction is really good, is
Yeah.
strong by
Yes.
itself. So when you see this card that is like it's good but it's not excellent, you say,
Yeah.
why I will play this?
Yeah. I could see a situation where you play this with Congregation, basically. You drop the Congregation for 3 Firesworns. You drop this card. No, wait, no. See, that's so clunky, because you need to drop the Congregation, but then you still need 3 coins. So you need to play another card
Yeah.
to get 3 coins, and then you play Whoreson. There's already 3 cards into your long rounds. And you still need to have a hand of crimes, which are fine, but not amazing round 3 cards, right? Most of the crimes are averaging like 6 points, maybe 7, right? So, which is like solid, but not as impactful of a finisher as something like the bounty package that we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say.
I will,
Mhm.
yeah, no, continue.
So yeah, I would say maybe I would rate this card like a 2.5. It's not really a bad card, right? But I just think there's better things to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the card is fine, but it's not broken.
Yeah, sounds good.
Also, there are better mechanics that intimidate in the set. So
Yes, yeah. I've generally found Intimidate to be a bit clunky. It's like a nice add-on if you get it, but you're never really building a deck around Intimidate. Just because the crime, into payoff synergy is sometimes a little clunky, especially in round 3 situations. Okay, so next card, Igor the Hook, Insanity. Insanity means if you have insufficient coins, you may damage the unit instead of paying its fee, which is kind of neat. So the fee amount is 5. Spawn a base copy of a bronze allied unit and summon it to Igor's row. So basically, this card adds more engines to your side of the board, I think is probably the best way to use it.
yeah, you don't want to copy other type of cards because it's a summon. So
yes,
you want, for example, another Lucky, another Slice Seductress.
yeah. So I saw Trinet playing this card with, I think, the 5 provision bronze. Was it Keeper of the Flame or one of the Flame Acolyte? One of the Flame cards. Apologies for not having the name. Which whenever you spawn a unit, you can gain 1 coin. So he was comboing this with that card to spawn a row of those engines. Because every time you spawn, you're generating more coins, which allows you to spawn more stuff with Igor, and then suddenly you have like a row of basically coin generators whenever you spawn a single unit. It was a really cool idea, but the problem is if they kill your initial engine, Igor doesn't do anything because it requires a bronze allied unit on the board to use the fee ability, and the setup is quite high because you need a full bank of gold in order to actually pull off that combo.
Yeah, I think you pointed the downsides of the card because it's a good card, but the cost is too high because I think V5 is too much when, for example, you can compare this card to Queen Adalia, but Adalia have more advantage.
Yeah, Adalia has a shield and is actually higher rates, right? Because if you subtract the fee from the power of the card, this is actually a 1-point card that copies a bronze, if you think about it. And it's from the board and not from your hand. So you don't even get the protection.
That's the other problem.
Yeah.
That's the other problem. You need the engine to survive one turn in the field, which is not really ideal. So...
It's not always easy to do, in the current meta especially. Yeah. Well, I guess we don't really know the current meta until it solidifies, but in the past meta that we've been playing. I would give this like a 2, I think. I give it a 2 because maybe there's something really broken you can do with this that we haven't discovered yet. But right now, it does seem unlikely to actually be competitive or see too much play.
I would say it's like 2.5 because I think card has potential, but we haven't see how to get that potential.
Yeah, that's totally fair. So next card we have is Prophet Lebioda. That makes a lot more sense and sounds a lot better. Okay. Whenever you play a unit next to Prophet Lebioda, give it a shield. Yeah, interesting card. You're getting 6 points for 10, which is obviously not the best rate. But how valuable is that shield?
I think this card is more valuable in Northern Realms than in Syndicate.
Yes.
Because in reality, most of the engines of Syndicate doesn't need the shield because you have fees, so you waste the coins in the same time. But I think this card could be used in some kinds of mebe builds to try to maybe some cheesy deck with King Reckner. But
it's possible.
Yeah, but I still think it's not good enough to be part of decks. But it has potential.
It definitely has some real potential with Meave, I think, because you can buff this to 7 immediately when you drop it on the board. It's kind of like a poor man's Avalok in a way, right? You don't get immune, but shield is decent, and you can use this multiple times compared to Avalok, which you can only use once. So I'm gonna give it a 3. I don't know. Like, we haven't really played around with this card yet. I'm sure there's something decent you can do with it. I think 3 is maybe like a safe bet for now.
Yeah, I agree in that evaluation. I think Lebioda has potential, probably in other rings, because in Syndicate it's not necessary.
Yes.
But this card is something that Northern Rings was asking for, which is protection for
the engines. Yeah, definitely.
And the most important thing is that it's immediate protection. You don't need to stick the engine in the field for 1 turn. So.
Yes, it kind of in a way reminds me of Neneke almost, right? It's also a 6-point card, and it offers some sort of protection, but it's a little better in that the shield is harder to deal with than just boost. The problem, of course, is that Neneke actually gives you like 9 tangible points, as opposed to the shield, which doesn't actually provide points. But yeah, I think that sounds about good.
I will say the same that too. I think this is a 3, not more, because
no more, no less.
3 for Northern Realms is good.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so this is the Skellige shared card. It's Sucrose. Prevent the unit to the left of Sucrose from taking any damage, which is a really interesting design. We haven't seen anything like this before.
Okay, I think the design is interesting, but in Skellige there are bronze cards that do the same in other way, but much cheaper.
So what do you mean by that?
Jaime Protector is literally the same, because if you are damaging the unit next, you are getting 1 point. So
The
in
healing.
reality,
Yeah.
yeah, it's doing more or less the same that Sucrose. So I
Yeah.
don't think this card is really necessary.
The one nice
Also,
thing about Sucrose is 6 is a tricky amount of power to remove from the board. You can't muzzle it. You can't. Most damage sources aren't good enough to remove it. You can, of course, lock it. But I agree. I think there's not a lot. Honestly, I'm not sure Skellige needs this card. It doesn't need to protect its engines that much. Usually, when you're playing Priest, you have stuff you want to damage, right? And that's kind of the problem. I feel like there's so many ways to get value out of doing damage through units that preventing the damage isn't necessarily even something that you're looking for in Skellige.
yeah, you have protectors, which is basically the same, but you get the benefit of the damage.
Yeah. So, honestly, I feel like this might be like a 1.5. I don't think it's completely unplayable. I just, in the current state of Skellige, I can't ever see this like going in any deck. You have much stronger things you can be doing at 10 provisions.
I would say the same because in
Yeah.
reality you don't want to play this card in scale.
Yeah.
It's not as bad to say it will never see play, but
Yeah, I mean,
it's...
potentially, there could be something you can do, but I can't see it right now, I guess, without playing with a card or having too much experience with the new cards in the faction. So, yep, 1.5 for both of us then. Next card is Sausage Maker. So Intimidate, Profit 3, Fee 5, Melee, Gain Resilience. This kind of reminds me of kind of like
Gabor.
a worse Gabor.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a card which, in terms of points, it's better than Gabor.
Yes.
More or less.
Well,
it has synergy with crimes, but in reality, you don't want to play this card too much because Gabor in reality is better because Gabor is 10 points.
Yeah, I think Gabor is much better, right? Because not
I
only
think
do you have the
that-
resilience option, you also have the immune option, which actually is relevant sometimes for Skeletal.
Yeah, especially for the control matchups because you can deny.
You can do Gabor Milva,
sometimes.
Gabor Milva, and then just really deny a lot of points.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Intimidate's nice, but honestly, again, it feels like a pretty clunky mechanic. I don't think a card is much better with Intimidate than without. Like, it obviously is a little better, but it's not like a reason to make the card that the card is good. And Gabor has dwarves anyways. Yeah.
I think this card is not really good. I think it's overrated. Most of people said when it was shown for first time that the card was OP, and it was like, no. Sorry.
5 is so many points to pay for resilience. If it was like fee 3, I could kind of see it.
Yeah.
In which case, it would just be like about the same as Gabor, maybe slightly worse because you don't have the you don't have the immunity option. But at 5, you're actually losing value on like you're paying 3 points for a 10 provision card that carries over, so maybe 6 points over 2 rounds. But still, like, they can remove the card, they can just damage it to kill it. There's so many ways to deal with it.
Yeah. They can muzzle and get.
Oh yeah, they can muzzle it also
for themselves.
It has all the problems of Gabor, but none of the benefits. I would give it.
I would say it's still better to pay 5 coins than carry over 2, but
yes,
it's not really really interesting.
It is worth noting though, in round 3, it's not the worst card because it's still 8 points for 10. So, like, that is okay, right? If you're paying 8 points for 10, you're not super happy with that, and maybe the Intimidate gets you like 1 more point or 2 more points, but it's like okay. So I don't think the card is necessarily bad. It's just not like OP or like super overpowered.
No,
right?
It's not really really good. I would say it's a 2 or maybe a 1.5.
Wow, really? Yeah.
I would say it's a 2 because you need to draw it in really specific conditions, and it's countered by many ways.
Yeah.
So I would say it's just a 2. I
I
think
I would
probably it's
say
pretty low,
yeah,
but
I would say it's either 2 or 2.5. I think I'm gonna go with a 2 because again, if we're evaluating this card by the power level of other cards in the sets, I think we can put it a little lower. If this was in like Nilfgaard or like Northern Realms or something, maybe it'd be a little higher. But 2 sounds about right. All right. So this card, Grand Inquisitor Helvid. Profit 4, fee 2, spawn a Firesworn Zealot. So again, supporting the Swarm archetype. The Zealots are just 2-point tokens. They don't do anything, but have synergies with other cards in the set.
but I will say this card could be played outside of the Swan archetype. Because in reality, sometimes you need like another coin spender. So I think this card is really solid as coin spender. The only problem is that you are going to be punished by Lacerate, or even Team Boy can punish you. But
yeah,
I would say this card will see play outside of Swan.
I think I'm a little lower than you on this card actually. My main problem with this card is if you count the profit and the power of the card, you're getting 8 points flat for 10, which is pretty mediocre, I would say. It's a decent engine, I would say, in the sense that you can spend the coins and have something to do, so you're not stuck round 3 with like 5 coins in your bank or something like that. But I'm not a huge fan of this as like your finisher to spend your coins. I think there are probably better options.
Yeah, I think there are better options, but I still will say that this card, if you have a deck which generates a ton of coins, you can play this card as another way to convert coins to points.
Yeah.
But okay, it's not the great card, but I would say it's like a 2.5.
2.5? Okay. Yeah. That sounds... So I'm lower on the card in the review, but I might actually be giving a slightly higher rating. I think this might just be a 3, for me at least, because of some of the synergies with the Swarm archetype. Again, I don't think the Swarm archetype is the strongest thing you could be doing in the set, but this feels okay if you're comboing it with stuff like Sacred Flame. So
yeah,
I don't know.
For the Swarm archetype is really good, because if you play the 5 provision card, I don't remember the name.
All the engines that either boost itself or generate coins, right?
Yeah,
the Keeper of the Flame or something.
The Firesworn Scribe, the one
the
that
Scribe,
when
yes.
you found 1 unit, you gain a crown.
Yes, yeah.
Which with this card, basically you make the field Hellbeat a field 1. So.
Yes, yeah. So that's actually key because it means you get 2 points per crown. The problem, of course, is it could only spawn on 1 row. So once you fill up the row, that's it. And if you have a long round, well, you probably have other cards you want to play anyways. So
yeah, also as some of the engines of the archetype needs to be played in range because of the ability.
Yes.
This card is soft locked to be played in melee, which
That's
is
true.
Not really good.
Yeah. I've definitely experienced that. I played a little bit of the Swarm deck, and the board real estate is definitely a problem sometimes in round 3, especially since Sacred Flame spawns 3 bodies on the board by itself. But yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna put it as a solid 3 just because it is very powerful in the Swarm deck. And however, I think in other decks I would prefer to play other ways to spend the gold as opposed to Helvid. Yep. So next card. Interesting. Bincy Bloomerholtz. Ranged. Whenever you gain coins, boost self by 1 for each coin gained. This is like sort of the dagger of Syndicate, right? If you combo it with something like Gudrun.
Yeah, I think you you nailed it. This card is meant to be played with Gurdrum because you just make the combo and get a 13-point card.
Yeah.
The problem is that you're playing really, really fast into all removal. But I would say this card could also be used in other. I would say you don't want to play this card outside with because the coin generation engines are a little bit easy to remove or block. But I would say this
It's
card is.
possible, I guess, if you have like MK or something and you're just doing some sort of engine-y strategy, you could maybe drop MK and then drop this card and, you know, gain 2 a turn. I've seen it. It seems okay if you don't have a lot of, if your opponent doesn't have a lot of removal, but it's very vulnerable.
Yeah, also my problem is that this engine is slow in comparison with other parts of the faction.
Yes, yes. And it's easy to remove if you drop it as an engine. Unless you boost it, in which case you play into tall removal, right? I will say this about the finisher also. Unlike with Dagger Herald, which you can use as last play with no strings attached, you need a way to spend the coins after you generate the coins with Gudrun, right? So for that to happen, you have to have some sort of coin spender on board that survives for when you actually play the combo, and that's not always easy to do. And if you say drop the combo like 1 turn early, and you don't have and you have last say or something, and you drop the second to last, you're playing into the tall removal. It's definitely a lot trickier to use than Dagger, and I don't think it's quite as good, even with the finisher combo, right? So a little clunky. What would you say for a rating?
I think I will be between 2.5. Maybe a 3 if I'm generous, but I will say 2.5 right now.
I think I'll just give it a solid 3. Yeah, maybe I'm a little optimistic. It feels powerful enough when you get it to do what you want it to do. It is just a little clunky to use.
Maybe we can say that if that one is fine to play, this card is also fine to play.
Yeah.
So.
The one thing I want to note about this card.
Maybe I will change my evaluation to a 3. You have combined.
Sounds good. Yeah, my one thing to note about this card is in most of the set, coins are one coin equals 1 power, 1 point on the board, 1 damage, etc. Right? Bincy is able to break that parity because when you generate a coin, it's basically an engine, right? When you generate a coin, it also boosts by 1. So each coin suddenly is worth 2 points if you count the boost on the Bincy as one coin, right? So in that regard, I think that has definitely some potential. It might be tricky to use, but being able to get more payoff from your coins than 1-to-1 always bears looking into. Yeah. So.
Okay, I think a 3. I will change my my notes to a 3.
Sounds good.
Yeah. You have combined.
I was even thinking 3.5 potentially, but I think 3 is probably safest for now. It is a little tricky to use, and for that reason, I think a 3. The Flying Redanian is our next card. This is Roach Ship. So Horde 9. This is the first time we're actually seeing Horde. Horde basically triggers if you have the specified number of coins. In this specific case, on turn end is when it triggers. Summon this unit from your deck or graveyard to a random allied row. So basically, you get 9 coins, you get the coin cap, and this pops out from your deck. And it's carryover too. It pops out from your graveyard in later rounds. What do you think?
I think this card is really good because first you have a free thinning when you hold 9 coins, which is not really difficult to generate.
Yes.
Or at least my experience says that getting to 9 coins in round 1 is really easy.
I think it's easy because the card Siggy Rubin exists, right?
You can just play Siggy Rubin.
And then that's it, yeah.
Yeah. I will say it has some downsides, like you can be
Yes.
Marcel or Philippa,
Right.
but I think the card is solid enough to be played in whole archetypes because the carryover is really neat and you can't be removed by locks because locks are clean in the graveyard.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Also you can muscle the enemy flying Redanian
that's
and get
true, and you can get
outside
two.
of the graveyard.
I've actually started to just not pop this out round one against in the mirror because if you get muzzled, that's it. You're super sad. Like um, that's game over because they get the carryover for the next 2 turns, and if you don't have a counter muzzle or something like that, you can't really do anything about it. But
Yeah, to be honest, I have been playing with Philippa and Muscle in the
same here.
synthesis.
I've been playing both of them in like basically every deck so far because I think they're really good against Syndicate. Which is why I think this card is being controlled a little bit in terms of power level. Once the meta shifts, or maybe they do some buffs to other factions, and we see less mirrors, I think the card would actually be a lot better when there's not an easy way to not only hose your opponent but give yourself 4 points of carryover. That being said, I still think I'm going to give this card a 4. I think it's just really solid.
Okay, I agree with you in that point. I
Yeah.
think the card is solid. When mirrors are less prevalent,
Yes.
the card will shine.
Yes, exactly.
The only concern I have is that being a 4, it's really easy to be removed by Cyprian Willy and one
And
thing.
banish in general, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Banish. Like Northern Winds or
Yeah.
Cyprian. But
Yeah. But I'm just gonna evaluate this card like Roach, basically, where in like Nilfgaard, where if it pops out of your deck, you're like in round one and they banish it, you're kind of sad, right? But it's not the end of the world. Yeah,
yeah, you lost some carryover, but
Yeah.
you are fine in reality because it's just 4 points.
Exactly. Yeah. This has a much higher upside than Roach, though, so I think that's why I'm giving it a 4. Okay, so next card, Speak of the Devil, it's Philippe Eilhart. We were just talking about this. Deploy, spend a number of coins equal to an enemy unit's power, and then seize it. So this is honestly very similar to Muzzle in a lot of ways. I feel it's a much higher upside, but a much more clunky, slightly unreliable version of Muzzle, in that you have to have the coins in your bank at that point to use it. However, you can steal much bigger things, and it doesn't lock, which is really nice. That being said, if you do the math on the numbers of how many coins you need to spend to get how many points of board presence, you break even at 7, which is not always easy to do. Not every faction plays cards with 7 power or higher. So generally speaking, just like Muzzle, you're going to be playing Philippe at a slight loss. But if you seize an engine, it's obviously going to be way better than Muzzle. What do you think about this card?
Yeah, I think this card was a little bit overrated at first sight because people were not thinking in coins.
Yes.
Because when you make the maths behind this card, you see that you are losing in reality a ton of points in the form of coins.
Yeah.
So I would say it's still a good card for decks that can afford this. But I wouldn't say it's as good as most people think, because you have to generate the coins.
Yes.
And you need to get a good target.
Yeah. There's a very real setup cost to the cards, because if they play an engine and you just don't have any coins in the bank, you can't use Philippa, right? Whereas you can just immediately Muzzle. So there's definitely like some drawback to playing this. You need to spend at least 1 turn, most likely, unless you're playing Gudrun, I guess, or maybe King of Beggars to set up the coins in your bank.
Yeah. I would say Philippa with Gudrun feels much
feels
better
a little better. Yeah.
Than King of Beggars for this card.
Yeah.
still, I will say it's like a 3.5 because it's
Mhm.
not a really bad card and it's really easy to set up.
Yeah, that sounds
So,
about right. I'm actually, I think I'm gonna go a little higher. I think I'm gonna give it a 4. Uh,
yeah, I'm always the guy with the
it
lowest
looks like I'm more optimistic than
marks.
you this time
Yeah.
around. Yeah, for a lot of these. I don't know. The way I see it, I guess, is it's actually a pretty good coin sink. You do need to get an engine to make it good. I don't think it's busted. I think it's actually pretty fairly balanced. However, I just feel like um, I feel like this card's going to see a bunch of play because it is so fairly balanced and it does have high impact in round 3 situations when you do seize that 5-point engine, you know, or even or if you seize a 9-point unit or something, which happens sometimes. So much higher upside than muzzle, just less reliable. Yeah, I'll give it a 4.
Okay,
We'll see. We'll see.
we'll see.
Okay, so this card is Vivaldi Bank. The text is kind of weird. Profit 1, look at the top card of your deck plus an additional card for every coin you possess. Play the top card for free or play another card for a coin cost equal to its distance from the top. Shuffle the remaining cards back into your deck. So,
Okay,
basically it plays a card from your deck, but probably costs you some coins if you want to play like a better card.
yeah. I when I first see this card, I said, okay, this is like a royal decree, but
Yes.
but fueled by coins. Okay, I think if your deck is lacking a little, if your deck is lacking coin spenders, you can use Vivaldi Bank. But I don't see why you want to
Yeah.
spend coins to get a card from your deck
It
because
feels way worse than Royal Decree. It's worth
yeah,
noting that you could use this to fetch, not excuse me, non-units, right? So like I get heaven forbid you're running like Shoop or something, you can use this to fetch Shoop, right? But you're generally speaking, you're probably going to be spending at least like 2 or 3 coins on average to find the card you're looking for, right? Even
yeah,
if it does search your whole deck, and that's not great, right?
it's more
Yeah.
expensive than Royal Decree in reality. Only if you want to play a ton of non-units or
Yeah.
well, maybe this card could be played in some kind of non-unit decks.
I could see that potentially. It's a fetch specific artifacts or something like that. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really specific, but it doesn't have the problem that there are with Royal Decree only fetching unit.
Yes. I'm gonna give it a 2. I mean, it might see some play, but it's gonna be pretty niche.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you. I think this card only fulfills an H function, so
Yeah.
it's a 2.
Sounds good. Uh, Damnation. Ooh, so this one. Damage 3 adjacent enemy units by 2. For every unit destroyed, spawn a Firesworn Zealot on the opposite row. So with the Death Blow, you're getting double points, basically. If you can set up a row of 3 units at 2, and you kill all of them, then this card is actually worth 12 points for 9 provisions, which is really nice. And even if you just get 2, this is still worth 10 points for 9 provisions, right? It kind of breaks even between 1 and 2 death blows. Um, Solid card, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this card design is really solid because Syndicate has enough tools to set the death
Yes.
blow.
Yeah. Between like the freak show, which just does
Freak
damage, and
Show,
then also the Endriga.
Executioners.
Yes,
Yeah,
executioners. There's a lot of way to control damage in this faction and set stuff at specific numbers. So all you need to do is wait for your opponents to play 3 units on a row, set them
and
all to
just
2,
make
and
the knocks.
get 12 points. Yeah, I think this card is very powerful.
Yeah, I think this card has a lot of potential. The only problem is that 3 tokens spawn, but
Hmm.
I would say this card being played outside of Firestorm archetype because it's really
Yes,
powerful.
I agree.
It's it's a 12 per 9.
It's actually a little tricky to play in the Firesworn archetype, I feel, because you don't generally play as much damage control if you're playing Firesworn as the mid-range deck generally does. um, but I will note, however, in a short round, this has a lot of the same problems that like Lacerate would have, where you actually sometimes don't have enough time to set up.
Lacerate.
Oh, it's way worse, yeah, in a short round. Yeah, you sometimes just don't have enough time to set up your death blows, and then you're playing this for like 6 points or something, or heaven forbid, like maybe 4 points even, if they just don't play into the rows. So that's definitely a very real downside. What would you say for point value?
I will say it's like a 3, maybe 3.5, because the card has a lot of potential and it's not really difficult to be set up. But
I think that's reasonable. I'm gonna go 3.5 because I'm always the optimistic one. I think that's what we're rapidly realizing here. It seems easy enough to set up in the current state of the faction that I think getting 12 is not unrealistic, and getting 10 generally is doable. And even if you only get 8, the card is still playable. So even if you have 1 death blow, the card is still like playable. So that's why I'm giving it like a 3.5.
Okay, I agree, because having 8 points for 9 provision is not terrible.
Yeah. The only thing is they need to have 3 adjacent enemy units, and one of them has to be at 2, right? Definitely some setup, but not as bad as it maybe initially looks with stuff like Freak Show in the faction. Okay, the next card is Madame Lucia, or Louisa, rather.
Louisa.
I can't words. It's the American brain. It doesn't pronounce things. So
don't worry.
Intimidate. Deploy your next tribute this round is free. Interesting effect. It's interesting because it's not like an order ability. They can't interact with this. You just get a free tribute. What do you think?
I think this card has potential if at some time we play a deck with high cost tributes.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see too much the intimidate part of this card, because it's a 6 and you don't really want to play into toll removal. So
right.
But I think, for example, in combination with Team Boy,
mm-hmm.
or even with Morels, which we will
talk with the
tribute
about 6
later. Yeah, the only problem is that in reality you don't want to play too high tributes, because they are not really worth the points.
Yes, yeah.
But still, I have to point that with a tribute 3, it's worth Madame Luisa's.
Oh yes, with tribute 3 you're actually getting at rates, right? Because it's 9.
I think the card can be good because it has a really big body, because 6 points is doable. But it's possible to be bled with this card, because if you are bleeding a deck about tribute, you just play round 2, wait for Madame Luisa.
That's true.
And pass. And they basically was the deploy.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think I like the card. I think it's solid. It's not like, yes, if you can get like you play this into Tim Boy is kind of busted, right? You're getting 14 points for 9 provisions with Intimidate, but it is there are as you pointed out, there's definitely some setup cost there. It's not quote unquote for free, right? Because you have to actually get a nice Tim Boy to make that worth it, etc., etc. Yeah.
I was thinking that maybe in combination with Skewer too, because it also has Intimidate.
Mm-hmm.
It could be worth, but I don't see how a deck focusing grinds can be valuable, because you need coin spenders anyway.
That's true. Yeah. Maybe like a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A 3 is fine, because the card itself is good.
It has a lot of upsides to it, definitely, and it's not really hard to get at rate value. Okay, oh boy, Vitir and Lydia, Lida.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
done. I'm
probably.
done. That's my final.
Probably.
That's my final answer. Profit 1. There's a lot of text on this. Order, damage a unit by 1. Horde 6, damage a unit by 2 instead. Cooldown 1, reach 2. So this is notably not fee, it's order, which means it does have like a... It has a... You can't use it the turn you play it, right? But it's an engine. It kind of looks a little bit like Sigvald. The Horde makes it a lot better, obviously. And it comes in with 1 coin, which is kind of nice, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just in deploy is a 6/9, which is kind of decent if it's removed.
Yeah.
But I think there are better cards in the faction because the problem is the whole 6, because you don't want to make only 1 point per turn, but you want to do the double.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you want to make your coins convert it into points. So I think this card is a little bit anti-synergistic with the
That's
faction,
true.
because faction wants to make points, not just horde.
Yeah, the way... If there's some sort of really engine-heavy deck in the faction, maybe making use of Portal or something, I don't know. This card could be good, potentially, in like a super engine-heavy
maybe
version that we haven't discovered yet. It has some weird... so going back to a previous card, Prophet Lebioda, like if you're playing some sort of engine deck, maybe there's something there where you play Lebioda, play this card next to it, just keep 6 coins and drop a spender as your last play, and then have this constantly be doing 2 damage, at which point you're building your own Imlerith Sabbath, basically. And that's pretty good, right? If you can guarantee the sticks on the board isn't answered, and you can get 2 damage. But that maybe is just a pipe dream. So, seems a little inconsistent to me. I'll give it like a 2 for now, I think.
I would say it's a 2, because maybe there is possible to make some kind of engine overload deck of the faction.
Yeah, with something like Portal and other cards that are already there.
But right now, I don't see this faction making that kind of deck.
Yeah.
Because you have better options.
I agree. It's kind of like the Sigvald situation, where SK doesn't really want to play Engine Overload, so you're almost never playing Sigvald, because there's just better cards to play in the slots. Right. If you happen to play Engine Overload, you're probably going to play this card. But if there isn't a viable engine deck in the faction, then this card's probably not going to see play.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So our next card is MK. I hope that's the way to say that. Ranged. Every allied turn on turn end gain 2 coins. Fee 3, gain a shield. So this is like a supercharged version of, what was it, Money Letter? The bronze card that gains 1 coin a turn?
Yeah, Tax Collector.
Tax Collector, that's the one.
Okay.
I think at this point I'm naming Dominion cards. Anyways, different card game. So yeah, this is pretty reasonable if it sticks. That's a lot of coins, right? If you're counting coins as one, it kind of reminds me of something like the Northern Realms engines, right? Which give you like 2 points a turn.
Yeah, I like this card. I like this card design because it's an engine that with his fee, her fee, you can protect herself, because you can make a shield if you don't have a better way to use the coins.
Being at 5 is definitely a downside because of stuff like muzzle, which the shield will not protect against. But just quickly running the numbers, right? Doing the math, assuming we pay 3 to give it a shield, this is about 12 provisions worth of cost for a 5-point card, which means we need to generate 8 coins for it to about break even. So that takes 4 turns from the turn you drop this card.
Well, we have to remember that as the test is every allied on turn, when you play this card, just get 2 coins automatically.
Yes,
Because
yeah. So I'm counting the turn that this card comes in. It takes 4 turns to
yeah,
break
to
even
break
if you
even.
use the fee. If you don't use the fee, it only takes 2 turns, which is not too bad, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's not broken. I think it'd be better if we have, again, sort of like a super engine focused strategy in the archetype, which it doesn't currently seem like exists. But I do think it's
Yeah,
probably somewhat playable, if a bit unreliable.
yeah. I think the card has potential to be
Yes.
used because it's a really good engine, but
Yeah.
it needs to be figured.
If
Like,
there's an engine archetype, this is the reason why you're playing that archetype, probably. One of the reasons, at least. That and like the cut ups. The cut ups are pretty good too. That do 2 damage if they're bonded. Yeah. I agree with Lutz in chat. She's the best of the gold high provision cost engines.
yeah,
Yeah. Point rating?
I will say it's a 3 because by herself it's a really good card, but
Yeah.
I don't see how to get profit of this card.
Yeah. It's hard right now to. Um, if they're running muzzles, it's really hard to actually get too much value out of this card. Is the only problem. 3 is also my rating. Yeah. But if you drop this card, you get 7 points immediately. You don't pay the fee. They muzzle it. Whatever. You're trading all right? You're trading okay with the muzzle there. So I don't know. Seems
Yeah,
seems fine.
seems like a 3
Yeah.
is fine.
Okay. So this is more reels. More reels. I have no
Yeah.
idea. Something like that. Deploy damage an enemy unit by 4. Tribute 6. Destroy it instead.
Okay, I think this is one of the best cards in the set because it's a Milan or an Ifrit in this.
Yeah, I just want to
If
note
we
that we've
want,
seen previous versions of cards without the tribute at 9 provisions, and those were all playable and generally very strong.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean the tribute is just a sweet addition to the card because
Yes.
if you really need to remove something, you can pay the cost, but even in the worst case, it's an 8 per 9, which is fine by
Yeah.
our standards.
Totally playable. The tribute feels like a worse Geralt in a way, because you're paying like 15 provisions to kill a tall unit. But for 1 more power, I guess. So yeah, I mean, I think the power of this card comes in the flexibility. If it was just damage a unit by 4, I think it'd be still a playable solid card, and you'd be happy to play it. But because you have the flexibility of the tributes to gain even more value, uh, it makes this a very, very, very solid card. Even if the tribute is only used once every like 5 games or something, having the option there is huge for stuff like Bincy, etc.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just flexibility.
Yes.
You don't really need the tribute, but
Yeah.
if sometimes you need to get really fast removal, you can
Yeah,
pay.
yeah. Even something like MK with a shield, right? Maybe you have no other way to deal with it. In which case, paying the tribute, blowing up the MK could save you somewhere in the range of like 10 points, over the course of a longer round. So, point
I,
rating.
I will I will say this card it's a 4, even a 4.5.
I'm gonna go 4.5, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm
Be-
always skewing a little higher, I think.
because I
Yeah.
think this card can be played in almost every deck in the faction and will be fine.
Yeah, you're almost always happy to play it, I think. 4.5. It's not as good as Siggy, right? But it's
No. But
definitely not.
Siggy is in other tier.
Yes, yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I think, especially if we're comparing to cards from other factions, like this is up there. I think it's better than something like Totem, I guess. Or yeah.
Yeah. It's in the same level.
All right, this next card is a little interesting. Graydon. Deploy melee, destroy enemy unit with bounty. This is the first bounty card we're seeing. Bounty is a status effect that you can give a unit where whenever the unit is destroyed, the player who placed the bounty gains coins equal to that unit's base power. So basically, you destroy a 4, you get 4 coins, etc., etc. And then if you pay tribute 5, you can boost self by that unit's base power. So if you destroy a 6 and you pay 5 coins, you kind of profit 1 coin, if you will, in terms of 1 power worth of conversion.
Oh, okay, I think this card has a ton of potential because with the deploy you are getting double value. You are getting the coins from the bounty and the power of the destroyed enemy.
Yes.
So just killing a 3, it's good because it's 9 per 9.
Yes.
The only problem that I see in this card is that if you don't have way to make bounties, this card is just a 3. It's like Gerald.
Mm-hmm.
And still, I will say this card is a little bit a trap because there are better ways to get value of bounties. But still, this card is not really bad. I think it has potential, and it breaks 7 really easy. I think the tribute is just a trap because you are not going to pay to be into total removal because tribute 5.
Yeah, depending on what the meta looks like in terms of tall removal, the tribute might just not see play. If there's not a lot of Geralts, though, I mean, I could see it. You could remove like a Bincy or something, and then win the game with like a 30 or 40 point swing. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's not quite as good as it looks because there's other ways to blow up units with bounty. Stuff like executioners, for example, can pretty reliably trigger the bounty. So you don't absolutely need to invest 9 provisions to do so. Obviously, if you get a nice target, you get a very nice going rate with this card. But I played a bit of the bounty archetype yesterday, and what I found was the only cards I couldn't answer are stuff like Bincy, which just, immediately is a 12. And because I'm not playing Geralt in my deck, because I'm greedy, I want to play all the good Syndicate cards, something like Bincy just goes way over.
Yeah, they are better cards.
And that's the way, yeah. But, honestly, maybe you should just be playing Geralt if there's a lot of tall stuff, as opposed to Graydon. And then, yeah.
Still, I will rate this card as a 3 because
Same here.
I don't think it's really bad. I think it's just unnecessary right now.
I think it's solid, but a bit overkill sometimes in the bounty archetype because Ewald and Executioner are able to kind of already do all the damage you need to do to trigger the bounties.
They do the same.
Yeah. And it's a lot of provisions to pay for this effect, right? Yeah. All right. Next card. This is our tutor of the set. Furco the Sculptor. Deploy melee. Play a crime from your deck.
Okay. This kind of design is the classic some kind of spell tutor that every faction has, like Keira with spells or Faust with nature cards.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see this card really being played because right now we don't have a crime that you need to play from the deck.
Yes,
really,
exactly.
You don't need to play a crime card really fast.
So as it is right now, you're paying a lot of provisions for basically thinning and options, but it's very expensive, right? You're paying 9 provisions to essentially thin your deck if you compare it to something like even a Royal Decree. And I agree with you. You only play these sort of tutors if there's a specific card you need for your strategy to work or to do something really impactful. That's why you play Royal Decree and like Herald, right? You always want to guarantee Dagger to combo with your Heralds for 20 points. But without a crime that you absolutely need to fetch, I don't know that it's worth playing this card. You can just draw your crimes naturally.
also you could just play Cleaver as leader
Yeah,
instead
that's
of
true.
playing Ferko.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. And Cleaver can tutor any spell at that.
I'm not really sold in this card.
Yeah, same here.
I know this card has to be included because every faction has
Right, yeah.
this kind of design, but I'm not a real fan of this one.
I think that's fair. I'm gonna go ahead and give this like a 2 or maybe even a 1.5.
I will say it's a 2 because it fulfills some kind of niche function in grind decks, but
Yeah.
not really. Isn't because even Menokoeho could be played with Asire, for example,
Right.
and this card right now doesn't have a real
It doesn't
synergy
really have
function.
that synergy, yeah. I
Yeah.
think I'm gonna go 1.5. Yeah, I just don't really
Okay.
see, I don't see a cohesive deck that would ever want this over just some solid 9 provision card that gives you a bigger impact. If they release new crimes that like are super busted and you want to have access to them, then this card might see play.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, or maybe a grind that needs a ground splitter in the field to be useful, like
yeah,
how it
like
with water
Water
scepter.
of Novigrad maybe, you know?
Yes, yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
So
Okay, you play this card and you get two
you get two
lucky if
engines. Yeah, exactly.
yeah if you get a ground splitter, for example.
Yeah, yeah. Um, 1.5 for now is my final answer
Okay,
though. Okay,
okay, I will say it's a 2.
sounds good.
Yes.
Adriano the Mink is our next card. Profit 2, Tribute 5, spawn a Sly Seductress and summon her to this row. So Sly Seductress is it's a 3 power engine, fee 3 to gain a shield. Whenever your opponent plays a unit, boost self by 1. However, if it's bonded, whenever your opponent plays a card, boost self by 1, so it still triggers off of artifacts and spells. The bonded is actually super powerful because I realized it triggers off of stuff like Royal Decree. It triggers twice because when you play Royal Decree plays a unit, so the Seductress actually will boost by 2 if you're playing multiple cards a turn. Um, just interesting side note. But what do you think about this card itself?
Okay, I think the card by itself is good because with the profit 2, it's an 8 per 8.
Yes.
I'm not really sold on the tribute because I think the cost is too high, but maybe in a deck with King of Vegas, in reality you are just paying 2 coins because you have profit 2 plus the 1 coin King of Vegas cut from the tribute.
Yeah, that's true. And then
So
2
I
coins for a
think
Slice Seductress isn't bad, right?
yeah, I think the card
Uh,
has potential. So I think maybe if, or also if you have another sliced actress in the field, it can be useful. The
yeah.
the only thing that worries me is that you need the bonded ability is not really as good
Yes.
unless tutors are being played, which right now is not really. I don't remember the word right now.
It's not super prevalent, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
just not
really
very
used.
common. Whoops. Accidentally exited the card. Okay, cool. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a reasonable ability, and if there was some sort of engine archetype, this card might actually be very powerful, right? If you're already playing Sly Seductresses just because you're playing a lot of engines, then this card is better because it's another engine. But right now, I mean, 2.5?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a 2.5. It has
Mm-hmm.
potential, but
Yes,
not
yeah.
right now.
No, we haven't found something in the 2 days, I guess, we've been playing this game that breaks this
That's the
card.
Yeah, but
So,
that's the funny part of
yeah.
of our review
Yeah, I mean,
because
that is the way of things, right?
Yeah, you are trying to figure how to make things.
Yeah. Very much of this is just our raw first impressions, of course. So next card, Doadric, Lumayert. Oh man, I did so well with the first name.
Yeah, Doadric.
Doadric. We'll just call this Doadric. Deploy if you control an agent, gain Zeal. Order ranged, draw a card, then move a card from your hand to the bottom of your deck. Cooldown 1. Very interesting effect.
I will say this card is interesting in his faction because basically right now Nilfgaard is played as draw your golds.
Yes, very much so.
So you can just use this card even in round 3 to reorganize your hand.
Yeah. It's worth noting that it's 6 for 8, which is like honestly not a terrible rate for the effect. Assuming you can get Zeal, let's say you tuck one of your 4 provision cards to the bottom of your deck and you draw a gold, right? You gain like +2, +3, possibly even like +5 points if you can just mulligan one of your bad cards.
Yeah, the most interesting part of this card is the part of the bottom of the deck. Because
yes,
we previously have the Bicovaro Novice, which was to the top,
right,
and the Merchant, which was just mulligan into the deck.
Yeah,
but I think this card can be played in Nilfgaard because sometimes you need to prepare your hand, or for example, you have a Bricket Leo Bonhart.
Yes.
You just take him into the deck and play a card which for sure will have better value than 3.
Yeah, I think it has some very real implications for Nilfgaard. There's been decks that play both Milton, Palmerin, and also the Witcher trio, right? Where you're looking, that's 5 cards that you're trying to draw over the course of the game. That doesn't always happen, and some games are lost because you didn't draw your Serets, and then you lost out on 8 points, right? Because you just have 2 locks in hand, basically, at 6 and 5. So, yeah, and if you play this round 1, as you said, it moves to the bottom of the deck. That's the same as basically banishing the card. Banishing the card from your deck, in that you're never going to draw that card because the deck doesn't get shuffled or anything between rounds. So banishing to the bottom means the card's gone. That's not one of the draws you could possibly get. It's a very powerful effect. Yeah, in something like round 1, for example, where you can just sculpt your hand. I like it.
Yeah, I will rate this card as a 3, even a 3.5, because in Nilfgaard, this is something that you need, because if you don't draw, for example, Serrit with Leto and Auto,
yes,
you feel really bad. So I would say it's like a 3.5.
Well, you can probably guess I'm going to go with the higher of the two. I think it's a 3.5.
Okay,
so,
I agree. I agree.
All right. Next card is Tatterwing. So I think this is the Monsters faction card. Also, deploy damage an allied unit and boost self by its base power. Actually, deceptively, I think it actually has quite a few combos, right? With in monsters,
for example.
Yeah, exactly. With like Caranthier. What do you think overall?
I think the card is interesting. Maybe in some kind of builds like Death Wish, or even with Aracas, it could be played. But my concern is that I'm not sure if Aracas can fit this card in actual builds. But I think this card it has some kind of interest for me. I think it's good.
Yeah, triggering Death Wishes is pretty straightforward. I actually had someone. I think this is more of a meme than an actual like insane play, but they Caranthier the 10-point troll from also the new card from this faction. So it deployed as a 1, right? And then they Tatterwinged it and boosted to 16.
Something that I thought is you can play Warzone Freak Show. Just take the Freak Show to 1 and play Tatterwing. And
that's true, and then you get a 12-point Tatterwing. Yeah.
And it's not really difficult because you can trigger the effect in the same turn.
Absolutely. And obviously there's a bunch of synergies with like that laughs and stuff, Caranthir. I don't know if it's necessarily going to see play in monsters because the monsters list are pretty tight, but it definitely there's potential, right? What would you say for a point value?
I would say it's like a 3 for monster and maybe 3.5 for syndicate. Because
Really?
I think just because you could play Arena Andriga or Warzone Freak Show.
That's true. Yeah.
My real concern is that monster lists are really optimized, and
Yes.
I don't know how to fit this card.
Yeah.
So that's why I will say it's a 3 for monster and 3.5 in syndicate.
I think I'm just gonna go for a solid even 3. I'm actually lower this one, huh? Yeah. I think it definitely has synergy in Syndicate. My issue with that though is I think Apothecary is such a potent combo with Freak Show as it is. You might not want to be committing an 8 provision card for for that sort of synergy. One, you can do it with a bronze basically. The faction is pretty tight in terms of all the cards that you're trying to squeeze in.
Yeah, that's the problem. That there are some good cards and just good cards.
Yep. I mean, with Apothecary, that's 10 points for like just paying the tribute for the 1 coin tribute, which is 0 if you have Beggar. That's already good enough, and that's like what I'm pretty sure that's a 4 provision card, right? Or is it a 5 provision, something like that, right?
For provisions.
Oh yeah, which is absurd, right? You're getting 10 points if you're comboing with a 1 point Freak Show. This is only 12, and you're paying 8 provisions. So just on virtue of that, I'm not super sold on this card. But again, it has potential. I think 3. Let's go to the next card. Caleb Menge. So, oh boy, this is the big bounty engine. We have Profit 3, Fee 3 melee. Place a bounty on an enemy unit. Oh, so I've been having a lot of fun with this card yesterday.
No.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. So.
Yeah. I was looking for the card, but I don't find it in the base.
No. No problem.
Okay. I think I found it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So just to quickly kind of explain how the bounty combo works. This is generally played with either Witch Hunter Executioner or Ewald. And what it does is you place a bounty on a unit. You immediately kill the unit with with your Executioner or Ewald, paying the gold. So if it's like a 4-point unit, you can kill it with Executioner by paying 4 gold. But because you place the bounty on the unit, you get that 4 gold back. So basically, it lets you machine gun down their board for every bounty placed on their unit, as long as you have the base amount of gold for the power of the unit. So if you have 5 gold in your bank, and their board is 5 units with 5 power, and they all have bounties on them, you can machine gun down their entire board with Executioner, and then gain some amount of like above rate gold gain for every unit you kill, basically.
Yeah, I will summary that this card in basically you pay 3 coins to remove anything lower than 6 points. Because imagine you have 9 coins, you pay 3 with Caleb.
Yes.
You just kill that 6-point unit, you get 6 coins back, so you just pay another 3 and kill another thing.
Absolutely. It actually has synergies with Cyprian also. With Cyprian, you have like way greater reach. You can even like knock down a 10 or something if you combo Cyprian with like an Executioner. So very, very, very potent ability. Basically, if you set up the combo, which takes a little bit of work, but it's not too bad, it's 3 gold to kill any unit on the board.
Okay, so I will say this card is about a 4 or even a 4.5 in my in my experience, because
Mhm.
you just set up the combo and you can just wipe the board. So
Yeah. You want to
I
guess what
would
I'm
say
gonna
it's
give?
really powerful. Yeah.
You want to guess what rating I'm gonna give?
5 or
Right
4.
now, I think I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
I was
don't want to say
thinking.
5,
Okay. Okay.
but
Okay.
there is there just isn't that much counterplay to it, but besides playing like a unitless deck or something like that. But I have found there, like, if your opponent has a lot of boosts, they can potentially boost out of range of your coins. Uh, it's pretty difficult to actually play the deck, is one thing I've realized. Which is not to say the card is weaker because the deck is hard to play. Simply that I think there's a lot of things to navigate and ways for your opponent to kind of play around it. Oh, also like the Purified guy, Kalkstein, I think, or whatever. Um,
Calstein.
yeah, actually is a legitimate counter to the strategy. So, um, because you can just purify everything they bounty. Of course, you have to remove Menge immediately when they play it, otherwise you're in for a bad time. Again, I think it's very, very, very powerful. It might even be a 5, but I, because it's a little bit tricky to navigate, I think 4.5 for now, at least. So, yeah, that's kind of my assessment. It could very easily be a 5, though, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's closer. It's close
It's
to
so
a 5.
close. If we were doing like fractions of ratings, I would give this like a 4.7 or something, 4.8 maybe.
Yeah,
Anyways,
but
yeah. Next card is Hammond. So this is the Skellige
dual
card.
with Skelly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Deploy melee, boost all allied pirates by 1. Deploy range, boost all allied ships by 1. Honestly, pretty mediocre in my opinion, first impression.
Yeah.
It's fine, yeah, if you have 3 pirates, 3 ships, you can get 8 points, but there's better things to be doing in Skellige at 8, I think. At that high
Yeah.
provision cost.
That's the problem with
Yeah.
Hammond. I mean, Hammond is not a real bad card, but it's mediocre in
Yeah.
Skelly.
The other thing is that's
Also,
a very real deck building and even play decision, right? You have to play more ships or more pirates. The problem with Skellige right now is you're generally playing 1 ship, maybe like 2 pirates, and then like a bunch of bears, right? There's not really like a pirate or ship tribal deck in Skellige. So
yeah, it's what Liu
yeah,
is saying in the chat.
yeah. It's
The problem is
anti-synergistic
that
with the current
it's
archetypes.
yeah, and even there are not really good pirates because you have the captain,
Yes.
but in reality you have much more pirates
Captain is
to
usually
play.
mulligan fodder around 3 anyways, right? There's not really an archetype to build around there. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna give this a 1.5.
1.5,
Yeah.
have you said? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I will say it's just a 1 because I don't really see this card being played because Skellige has much better things, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how Hammond can get a spot in Skellige list.
That's totally fair. I will note, as the card pool increases, tribal tends to get a little better because there's just more ships and more pirates to play with. So if they release like 1 powerful ship a year, eventually you might be able to build a deck with all the strong ships, and then maybe you play Hammond, right? So I'm saying like this card is probably like a 1 right now, but because it in theory has potential, I'm giving it the 0.5. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I think 1 is totally valid. Yeah. Sir Skewertooth. Intimidate 2, Tribute 4, gain immunity. Interesting card. So without the tribute, this breaks even if you play 2 crimes. With the Tribute 4, You need to play 4 crimes for this to really to be at rates. I'm pretty underwhelmed. What about you?
I don't really like this card. I think it could have potential if there were more crimes that are good to play, but right now you need to pay the tribute to get points of CS keyword good.
Yeah, yeah.
So you need to get 4 crimes to break even, and I doubt you won't play that many crimes from your hand.
In round 3 especially, the crimes are generally your lower impact bronzes. I mean, yeah, there's like Justice and Damnation and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
it seems like a lot of work to get this card to actually get the payoff.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
this card could be played in if there were more gold crimes, but
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now there is not a good for him.
This is the main problem I have with Intimidate in general, and it's different from something like Leary and Arbalist in Henselt. Arbalist is just this really powerful engine because every single card that Henselt plays, basically almost every single except for like 2, has orders. So every time you play a card, Arbalist gains 1 charge. The problem with crimes is you're never going to play a deck with all crimes. You literally can't, right? Because they're specials. So it's a real challenge to build a deck, and it's hard to balance, the crime payoff cards and the crimes. I don't really think that's something you're trying to do. I just don't really think that's a feasible way to build it, to build this deck. It's just super clunky.
I think if there were more crimes like Damnation, which was just focusing get points,
yes,
it could be viable. But as most of the crimes are just based on getting profits, they are not really valuable to be played in round 3.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna give it a 2. I mean, in theory, I guess if the card pool expands, it might see some play. I don't know, but it's just a little clunky. Intimidate in general, I think, is hard to build around.
I would say more or less the same, because the card needs more pool.
Yes. Yep. Okay, the next one is Kurt. Intimidate, deploy melee, lock a unit, deploy range, purify a unit. What to say about Kurt? It's a neat effect.
I would say this card has the same problem that all Intimidate cards.
Yeah.
You don't want to play this card in round 3.
It's just unreliable. The Intimidate is just unreliable as a way to actually generate points. Yeah,
it's slightly better than Aguara, but Aguara is not saying play, so...
Yeah, yeah, slightly better than an unplayable card is, right? Not saying too much.
Yeah, that's the problem. Being better than unplayable is not...
Yeah. I mean, the Purify is useful, right? But I don't think I want to play an 8 provision card just to Purify. Honestly, like, I would play... Like, Kalkstein's the better card, right?
Yeah,
if you want to Purify.
Is a 7/7.
Yeah.
This guy is a 4/8.
And I also wouldn't play this just for the lock. Yes, there's something to be said about the flexibility of being able to Purify and locking. But I don't think that flexibility is worth an 8 provision slot. Just... I'm gonna give this card a 1.5.
1.5. I will say the same. I think maybe you can play him because you need a lot, but
yeah,
the card is really mediocre.
I don't see this as strictly unplayable. It just I can't really think of a situation where I would prefer to play this card over something else right now, I guess.
I think
yeah.
Maybe if the Witch Hunter tribal archetype will be better,
yeah.
be played, but...
If you can somehow have some synergy with more than just Tamara, and there's more Witch Hunters, maybe. Possibly. Yeah.
Okay.
Next card is Caesar Bilzen. Deploy... Trigger the profit abilities of adjacent units. Fee 3, boost an allied unit by 2. pretty unique
O-
ability.
Yeah, I think this ability has a lot of potential because, for example, you could just play Siggy
Hmm.
and play Cesar and get the full
Yeah,
value of Siggy another time.
that's the obvious use of it, right? I think Siggy for 9 seems reasonable.
Of
Yeah.
course, but what's the real problem of this card? That you need some kind of coin spenders to get the value.
Yeah.
Because Fee3 Busan Ally Patch 2, it's really bad.
Yeah. It is also
Maybe,
possible if you're playing against like a control deck that they just remove all your stuff from the board anyways, and you might actually brick this in the same way you might brick a Vrygriff.
yeah, this card is Brigade, but in another form. It's design.
Yeah. He's even wearing the winged helmet actually, which I just noticed now.
He's even Nilgardian.
That's actually really funny. um, yeah, I mean, I'm not super high on the card, I think, because yeah, the upside is great in that you can generate. It's like a second Siggy for your deck for 8 provisions if things go right. I think it is a little brittle. You need to combo with. If you don't find Siggy, the card is gonna get you like maybe 7 points.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, I think with Kale, for example, it's a 7 per 8, which is
Yeah, yeah, not
not really
terrible,
bad.
but there aren't that many great profits. I think outside of gold cards. Uh,
Not really, because
yeah,
the other great profit is Crime Cards or Horse and Ewell.
or
But
maybe like Havid or something like that. Or yeah, the Borsodis, yeah. So 4 for 8. I mean 8. Sorry, if you get 4 profit, you're getting 8 for 8, and that's fine, right?
yeah,
Yeah. So obviously, if you play 2 coin generators and then you play Caesar, that's kind of good. But then you have 3 coin generators. It's tricky to actually craft that sort of in-game situation. I think where you're getting more than 12 points with this card or something ridiculous. But yeah, I don't know.
I would say it's just a 2.
Okay,
It
I'm gonna go with 2
it
also.
yeah, it can get value in each situation, but outside of that is not really good.
Yeah, sounds about right to me. Let's go to the next one. We have Boris here. It is deploy, damage an enemy unit by 3, death blow, gain 3 coins. Ooh. So
Okay,
if you
this
get the
is
death blow, it's 9 for 8.
okay. The death blow of this card is really easy to trigger because it's 3 and the faction has enough ways to set up the death blow. So I would say this card is really good because it's 9 per 8, which brick saving really easy. The only problem it can have is against no units, but I mean it's like every single control card.
Yeah.
I would say this card is really similar to Sirsa in Skoya because you make death blow and you get some kind of carryover because coins can be considered as carryover points to another play.
Yeah.
I would say it's this card should be my top 5 of the set because I almost always get the full value of Boris.
I think that's fair. It seems solid. It seems really solid in terms of the amount of value you can get from it. It's not ever going to be broken or like
No,
super overpowered, but
yeah,
it gets the
because
value every time, almost every time.
I would say
Yeah.
it's like 3.5. Even I will say a 4. I will say it's a 4
You're gonna give it a
because
solid 4. Yeah.
yeah,
Same here.
it's really easy to fit.
I think I'm gonna also give it a 4 with all the damage control options, and you can just find 3 point units naturally. It's not that hard to find a 3 point unit. Um, yeah, I think a 4 makes sense. It's like a Wily that's actually above rate most of the time.
Yeah.
without the banish, of course. So, all right. So let's go to the next one. Rico Meyersdorf. Whenever your opponent plays a unit while Rico is in your hand, set his power equal to that unit's base power. I take it you're not a huge fan?
Okay, it's not a really good card because, to be honest, this card fills the category of only good against tall units because
Yes.
the provision cost is too high, and Nilgar has better options against that kind of cards like Leo or Shillard.
I
So
agree.
I would say this is one of the worst cards in the set.
Yeah. My take is this, right? You need them to realistically play a 7 even to get at rate. That's not a good place to be. Because if you're getting value from this card, like if you're getting reliable value from this card, which you're not, it's unreliable. But if you want to get value, they need to be playing at least an 8. At which point, why not just play Geralt, right? Which is kind of doing that tall, teching for tall cards thing a lot better. You can usually get way more value out of
even
Geralt.
Leo, even Leo, it's better
Yes,
than this
exactly.
card.
Yeah, it doesn't even remove the units, which is a lot worse, right? Yeah, so there's some tall units that you want to remove from the board because they're engines or something and they keep on growing. This doesn't even do that, right? So,
I will say this card has the same rate than his base power. This card is 1.
yeah, perfect.
It's terrible.
I think this is a pretty uncontroversial one. So let's move on to the next one. Tavern Brawl. Force an enemy unit to duel an adjacent unit. Hard to evaluate, honestly.
Honestly, I would classify this card as a cheesy pick because this card is only good if your rival is not aware that this card is in your deck.
Surprise value. So let's set up some like hypothetical duel situations. If your opponent has an 8 and a 4 next to each other, you can have the 4 duel the 8, and then this will be an 8-point card. If they have like a 3 and a 6, you can have the 3 duel the 6, and then that's like a 6-point card, right? It's not that difficult to set that up. Or even like 3 and a 5, right? 3 and a 5 would duel. 3 would hit the 5 for 3 damage. The 2 would hit the 3 for 2 damage. Still 6 points. Yeah, so a 3 and a 5, a 4 and an 8, 3 and a 6. Any number.
The real problem of this card is the adjacent.
Adjacent, yeah, it's tricky.
Maybe if this card was for the roll, it could be super good, but right now I'm not really sold.
Yeah, the problem is it's so hard relying on your opponent to play into this card. It's just, even if they don't do it, even if they're not aware you're playing this card, they might unintentionally sequence the row in a way that you can't get much value. And the problem is, just getting at rate's not really a reason to play this card because there's a huge inconsistency cost to putting this in your deck, right? It could just do nothing. So really, if you want this to hit, you want this to be hitting well above rates. And I just don't see that as particularly likely, right, with how much setup. So
I will say this card is at 2. Yeah, maybe at 2.
I'm going to go lower. I think I'm going to go 1.5, yeah, on this one.
Okay, it's totally fine because...
Yeah. I just don't like relying on your opponent to set something up, and honestly, yeah, if they know you have this card, you're never getting value out of it, I think, is the big problem.
I think this card fulfills one of the rules of deck building. You should never expect your opponent to do something to make your deck good.
Yeah, which is slightly different from forcing your opponent to do something to make your deck good, which sometimes happens, right? But there's no way to really force your opponent to set this up for you. So, yeah. All right. Pugo Boombreaker. So this is a monsters duel faction. Deploy, damage a random allied unit by 3. If there are no allies, damage self by 5 instead. Interesting card.
Okay, I think this card is really good in combination with Guernicora, for example,
Yes.
because it's basically a 9 per 7, which is also a target for
Yeah.
Othra. And I think this
Yes.
card could be played in every single big monster build.
This
I
is
know
the
the
better
archetype.
Griffin, right? This is just
Yeah,
a strictly better Griffin. Not
yeah,
strictly, not strictly, sorry, not strictly. But it is,
yeah,
on average, a better Griffin.
yeah.
Yeah.
The point on Griffin is that Griffin is brown, so you can use good for consuming it. While this card is golden, so you
Yes, you
can't
can't consume it with
play it.
Ghoul. Exactly.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
think this card should fulfill the role that Goliath, for example, has
Mm-hmm.
in Big Monster. So I would expect this card to be played in Monster
Yeah, and
because it's
worst
good.
case scenario, I think even if you're playing some sort of Death Wish deck, it doesn't have to be Queen, but just if you have Death Wish units in your deck, it's honestly not that bad triggering a Foglet with this, right? You're still getting the Death
Yeah,
Wish, so
I mean you can even trigger an Ancient Foglet
a
with
Foglet or a Harpy Egg, yeah, it's a lot of value with Foglet, right? You're getting 15 points over 2 cards for 11 provisions. Yeah,
yeah. I think this card is really good. I
yeah.
would say it's a 3.5, maybe it could be a 4 because it fulfills a real role in an archetype.
Hmm.
But I will maintain the 3.5 right now. I could say in a week it could be a 4.
I think that's reasonable. I respect it. I'm gonna go with 4 because I'm super optimistic. Yeah, I think it just can immediately see play in a lot of different monsters decks, and replaces like worse options, and that's why I'm gonna put it at 4 for now. But I can also acknowledge that it might be a 3.5 as we play with it more. So let's go to the next one. Ah, here he is. Adalbertus Kalkstein, whatever, something like that. Profit 2, feed 2, purify a unit. Deceptively strong is what I've realized.
Yeah, this card is really strong because in the worst case is a 7 per
Yeah.
7, which also can deny in some cases the bounty archetypes
Oh
because
yeah,
you can
yeah.
just pay 2 coins and remove the status.
My prediction is we're gonna see more of this card. If bounty doesn't get nerfed, I think we're gonna see more and more of this card. This might be like basically played in every mirror.
Yeah, this card is really good.
Yeah. The key thing to note about this card is most tech cards, like locks, like purifies, you're paying a price to be able to do that effect, right? The cards are usually not worth the provision costs, right? However,
Yeah,
this card is actually 7 for 7 because you profit too. So even if you never purify a unit, the bottom line of this card is still at rates. You're getting 7 for 7, and that makes it so much better than other cards that purify or other
yeah.
cards
For
that lock.
example, Kurt. I don't see how could you play Kurt when Kalstein is in the same set.
Yeah, exactly. Bert is just it's just gonna have to like, yeah, you never play Bert, I think, over Kalkstein. It's just,
Yeah,
yeah, even though maybe sometimes a lock is coming in handy, but there's a real risk to playing a card like Bert where you just might not get value. Whereas with Kalkstein, even if they don't have anything for you to purify or you don't have anything to purify, you're still always getting full value. Super powerful. You're not really paying a price to be able to purify, and that's what makes this card. I'm gonna say 3.5. Honestly, I don't think it's like a 4, but I think the utility is so high on it that I'm willing to give it a 3.5.
yeah, and I agree with you. I think Kalstein is good enough to beat 3.5 because even if his primary faction is not fulfilled, he's going to get enough value because it's 7/7.
Yep. And if the Purify is relevant, you could easily be getting like 10 plus points just from Purifies, right? Against bounties or something like that. Yeah, great card. Okay, so this is the other Northern Realms card. Nathaniel Pastodi. Whenever Nathaniel receives a boost, give bleeding to a random enemy unit for 2 turns. Pretty in Syndicate, I think. It combos with that Blacksmith that boosts, but this might be very powerful in Northern Realms.
Yeah, I think this card primarily we will see play in Mebe boost decks.
Yeah, exactly. There's not really a cost to setting this up if you're playing it with Meave. Immediately when you drop the card, you're already getting 7 full points of value just by boosting with Meave.
The problem I have with this card is the bleeding to a random enemy.
It's so much better if it's damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you could just hit the same enemy several times in a row and get some.
And get unlucky, yeah.
Yeah, then bleeding.
And if you play it later or something in the turn, the bleeding might not have full time to tick, right? It's a little clunky to play for sure. You can almost always get 7 points. It might be tricky to to actually go off with this card and get some ridiculous 20 points or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but as I see this card brick 7 really easy. With 1 boost, you just get to 6 points plus the bleeding.
Exactly.
I would say this card is about 3 or even 3.5. I will take the 3 right now because Northern Rings is a weak faction.
Yeah.
But I will say 3.5 in the next weeks if somebody hits the nail with him.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give it a 3 for now. I'll be a little reserved on this one. You still have to have a reason to play Meave, right? At the end of the day, yeah. But it is very powerful in Meave for sure. Okay, so the next we have the Barsoldi brothers. This is Horst. Profit 2. If Ewald Barsoldi is in your graveyard, increase this initial profit by 2. Fee 2, ranged, boost an allied unit by 2. I'm just going to move on to Ewald also so we can review both because they basically are mirrors of each other. Ewald does the same thing, profit 2. If Horst is in your graveyard, basically profit 4. On melee row, and it damages a unit by 2 for fee 2.
Okay, first I will say Ewald it's slightly better than Horse because you can combo him with, for example, the bounties and get profit.
Yeah.
It's like Horse is the less nice brother.
Yes, absolutely. It generally is the case in this game that damage is a little bit stronger than boosts because boost sets your units up for tall removal. Boost sets your units up to be reset. There's a lot of nasty things they can do. Whereas removal, like just damage, if you just remove their units from their board, there's not really that much counterplay there. I guess they could play Death Wish or they could play Unitless, right? That's obviously true. But being able to have the option to remove engines is just very powerful. So Ewald, I think, is definitely hands down the better of the two brothers. These cards feel strong, right? The first one plays for 6, and the second one plays for 8. So they're about at rate. But, I mean, the real standout is the fact that this is one of the better payoff engines in this set, right? You have a lot of ways to generate gold. You need to spend the gold somehow. Being able to destroy almost any unit on your opponent's side of the board at will is a very powerful way to be using your gold, your coins.
Yeah, I will say these two cards are almost auto-include in every syndicate deck now.
That seems to be the case.
I would rate Edward slightly higher than Horst because
I agree.
It's better.
Yeah.
I would say Edward is the 5.
5.
I would say maybe Well, Ewout is a 4.5 and Horse is a 4 because Horse is still really good, but not as good.
I think that's fair. I'm not gonna go 5. I think I agree. 4.5 for Ewald, and then a Horst we can put at 4. Obviously, you have to play both, right? But
Yeah,
one is clearly better than the other. You're playing Horst because you're playing Ewald. Maybe in a vacuum you would still play Horst, but you're definitely playing Horst because Ewald exists. So yeah, I think that's totally fair. Card is really good with what the faction's trying to do right now with all the coin generation. Next card is Tamara Stranger. Boost all allied witch hunters by 1 on deploy. If you pay the tribute, it boosts all allied witch hunters in hand, deck, and on the battlefield. So that's in a roundabout way some carryover. If you play this round 1, you can have, you know, bigger witch hunters for round 3. What do you think?
Okay, I think this card suffers something that we pointed at the Intimidate cards. There are not enough witch hunters in the game right now.
Yes, yeah.
Because I was counting and there are only 7 cards which duck tap, and one is Tamara, which doesn't boost.
Which doesn't boost herself, yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. If there's more witch hunters, and some of the witch hunters are really good, then this could very well see play. But as it is, even in the bounty archetype where you're playing all the executioners and all the witch hunters, I just don't think it's impactful enough. You're probably going to be playing something else in this slot, most likely. If you're paying the tribute, this is basically a 10 provision card. So that's so hard to actually even break even, right, with this right now.
I mean, we could argue that if you are in red, you can just pay the tribute as a way to get carryover.
Yes.
But still, this card needs more witch hunters in the card pool. So
yeah, absolutely. Would you say?
I will say right now it's a 1.5 because.
Okay, perfect.
It's really bad.
That's where I have it as well.
It has potential in the future, so I wouldn't say it's totally trash.
Yeah, I think the card design in a vacuum is fine. It's actually kind of powerful if we have a witch hunter archetype with a ton of witch hunters, and that's why I'm not rating it a 1. But yeah, right now it is basically unplayable, unfortunately. Okay, Herald Gord. There's 3 heralds in this game now. Come on.
Okay.
Deploy, boost self by 0, increase boost 1 by every special card you played this game. Interesting design.
Okay, it's interesting design, but the card right now it's really bad because there is nothing like a Spelatrial archetype.
Yes, exactly. There's no deck for this card to go in, is the problem.
Yeah. The card has potential maybe because it boosts in deploy, which is interesting because cards like Shillard can't counter you.
Yes.
But this card is still weak because I don't see how to get the value of this card.
The nice thing about this is you don't have to have it in your hand round 1 or round 2. You could just play spells, assuming you play something like 8 spells over the course of the game, which is unlikely, right? That's pretty tough to do because you can only have a max of 12 spells in the deck. Of course, there's some units that play spells like Triss, you know, and maybe you have a leader that plays or copy like Francesca that plays a spell from graveyard. Maybe something like that. I don't know. But if you can get this up to like 9 or something, like it's okay, it's reasonable, but it's still not crazy good, and it is a pretty high setup cost, I would say, even to play 5 spells. Yeah.
I will say this card is a 1 because it's in a really weak spot right now.
Yeah, I think I can agree. I'll also give it a 1. I just don't see a ton of potential with the card right now, or in the future even, unless core things about the game change. Okay, so Pickpocket, pretty simple. It's a crime. Profit 6.
Okay, we can call this card some kind of Thunderbolt potion in this guise.
Yep.
So I think the card is good because it's a 6, but there's a problem in the set. We have Swindle, which is profit randomly between 4 and 6. So
Average
I don't
is
see
5. Yeah.
what?
It-
So I don't see a reason to play Pickpocket right now.
Yeah, I would rather play a swindle than a pickpocket. I would rather play 2 swindles rather than put pickpocket in my deck, right? So that's the problem.
The card itself is not terrible,
Right.
but it has too much
Competition. Yes, absolutely.
competition to enter in the deck.
Um,
So
I agree.
I will say this card is a 2, but because of the competition, not because the card itself.
Same here. I'll just make a quick note also that there's usually more ways to generate coins than actual reasonable, reliable ways to spend the coins. So if coin generation was somehow harder, maybe Profit 6 is actually desirable. But right now, I just don't necessarily think it's necessary and there's better options. So 2 for you, 2 for me. Let's go to the next one. Excommunication. This card was generated some controversy, I think, in the community. Banish an allied unit, then play the top card from your deck.
Okay, I think this card is terrible.
I agree. Yeah.
First, you are losing points because you have to kill one of your units, which more likely at least will be a 2.
Mm-hmm.
So you just need to play a card for 8 points. Also, you don't have a way to control your top deck as Syndicate faction, which makes this card really random.
Yeah. So people are comparing it to Villum. The problem is Villum usually has synergies with fetching specific golds that you're looking for, and also playing into stuff like lacerates or into even giving a body for like a trebuchet or or something on the melee row. Even like giving another body for Revenant to hit in the decks that play Villum. So this is way worse than Villum because it doesn't fetch a gold. There is a way to control the top card of your deck. It's Fisher King. The problem with that, though, is you're playing a 4-point card in round 3 to set up a 6-point card. So you just spent 2 cards at below rates to tutor out
13 provisions.
to tutor out, I don't know, maybe like a renew. That just doesn't seem great, you're spending so many cards to do that for just not that high impact, So yeah, I don't think this card is good at all.
I think maybe you can play this card in combination with Courier, but you don't want to play for provision card in round 3.
Yep, that's kind of how I feel. I don't think it's worth the setup cost to guarantee the top unit of your deck, and if you don't guarantee the top card of your deck, then the card is really, bad. really, really bad. So I think this is an easy 1 for me.
Yeah, I think this is a 1.
Yeah.
I don't see how this card can be even decent.
Exactly. Same here. Too much setup cost to make it playable. And by playable, I mean getting below provision rate still on what you're fetching. Okay, so this next one's kind of cool. Procession of Penance. Okay. Damage self by 6. Reduce the damage by 1 for every Firesworn Zealot you control.
Okay, I love this card, but I think right now the archetype is really weak. But I love this design because if you want, you can play around the removal because you can just spam
play this last
3 tokens and
get
7.
Yeah. Definitely. You can do.
Also, you are not vulnerable to resets because in its highest power, it's just a 10.
Yes.
So I think this card is great, but the archetype is not good enough.
I think that's totally fair. I also want to point out this card has Becker's Dark Mirror synergy. I don't think it's going to be good, but interesting to note. Interesting to note nonetheless that it actually is a 16 over 2 cards with Becker's Dark Mirror for not super high provisions. That's not a reason to play this card, but just worth pointing out, there's some stupid synergies combo potential with this card also. Yeah, and you can consume it with Tatterwing for the 10 points, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I like the design a lot. I think being able to control how big it comes out at and all that. But yeah, there's not really a great archetype for it just yet, though there are some dumb things you can do with it.
I would say it's like a 3. I think
Mhm.
the card is not really bad, so
I
it's a
agree.
3. It's solid, but you need something
3
to
sounds
play
good
this
to me.
archetype.
Yeah, three sounds good to me. It would be much higher if the archetype was more viable.
Yeah,
Okay,
because it's for 6 provision, 10 points, it's insane.
absolutely. And here we come to one of the other really strong cards in the set. Horsun's Freak Show. Insanity. Fee 1, give an enemy unit bleeding for 1 turn. If Insanity was used, damage it by 1. Interesting enough, the Insanity effect here, as it is with most cards to be honest, is better than if you actually have coins. So you actually want to sequence in a way that you can get the Insanity without having a huge coin bank. Damage is better than bleeding, right?
Yeah.
What to say about this card? It's really, really good.
And also you can combo his Insanity with Apothecary,
Apothecary, yes.
which is another of the strongest card in this set.
Yeah, so with Apothecary, how that works is it's a 3 power unit. When you deploy it, you can either heal a unit or boost it by 2, and if you pay a tribute of 1, you get to do both effects. So with Freak Show, you Insanity down to 1, so a Freak Show's at 1. You play you generate 1 gold with probably King of Beggars or something, and then you play the Apothecary, tribute it, so you heal Freak Show back to 6, and then you boost it by 2 for a total of 10 points on the Apothecary, assuming the tribute's free because you're playing King of Beggars. So it's a 10-point combo with a 4 provision bronze, which is incredible. And the crazy thing is you can do it again. You can do it again with Freak Show. You can just damage it down to 1, play your second Apothecary for 10 more points, assuming you have another way to generate the gold.
I think this card is undercosted. I think it could be perfectly playable at 8 provisions.
Yes, absolutely. It's very, very good. You never lose value. It's always a 6 for 6. Damage is just really strong, and the design of Gwent historically, at least since Homecoming, has been damage comes at a premium, which means you never get full provision costs for the amount of damage you're doing, unless there's some sort of setup or some sort of catch. This just gives you 6 points of damage for 6. And it also has combos with all sorts of other stuff and has implications with boosting, and yeah, card's incredible. What would you give it? 4.5? 5?
4.5. Okay, maybe if we have more rates, I will say 4.75. Because this card is insane. But I will maintain a 4.5. I will be a little conservative. That has.
I will as well. I think 4.5. 4.5 sounds right. I know I went freaked out about all the combos. It is very, very strong, but I don't necessarily think it's quite there at the 5. It is still a 6 for 6. At the end of the day, you do need to do some setup for it to be good, etc., etc. Turns out the setup is really strong, and that's why this card is at a 4.5. But yeah, I think that's fair. Next card is Tunnel Drill. Profit 1, fee 3, melee, destroy an artifact. I'm not as high on this card as most people, I feel. I think it's strong. I think it's a really solid artifact removal option. But you actually need 2 artifacts for this card to really, really, really generate some value to be better than the other artifact removal options.
Okay, but this card has the same characteristics than Adalbertus.
Yes, exactly.
Because it's a tech card, which in the worst case is played like a 6 per 6 because it has profit 1. So even in the worst case, you are not losing a ton of points, while you can get additional value.
Yeah, so that is definitely why people are rating it highly, right? The fact that you're getting 6 for 6 no matter what. Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely fair. I don't think the card is bad. I think the card is very strong, right? I don't think it's broken though. I think it's pretty fair.
No.
And I think
It's
not
fair.
every deck is going to play this card. I think you only play this card if there's an artifact heavy meta. You're happy to play this card if there's an artifact heavy meta, but honestly, it's maybe par with something like Ida, maybe even slightly worse depending on what artifacts are seeing play. If it's just Summoning Circle, Ida's slightly better than this card, I think. Yeah.
Okay, I would say this card is a 3.5 because artifacts are not as usual right now.
Yes.
But if there are some kind of non-unit meta, this card.
This card easy 10. Easy 5, right? If everyone's playing unitless artifact decks, this card is an easy 10. The one thing I just want to note is that if you're paying the fee to destroy one artifact, assuming your opponent only plays one in round 3 or something, what you're actually getting is 3 points plus artifact destruction for 6 provisions, which is still very, very solid, right? But yeah, it's not like head and shoulders above all the other artifact destruction options, assuming you're hitting only one artifact. Once you hit 2 artifacts, game over. This card is like the best artifact destruction spell in the game. So yeah, that's all. 3.5 sounds solid.
Okay, but I like the card because it's not as... The problem with most of artifact removal is that they are really binary.
Yes.
Because or you get a lot of value or you just get a brick. While this card is actually okay. It's like Ida. Ida is okay if you don't hit an artifact.
I think it's very comparable to Ida. Exactly. I think Ida's maybe a good comparison to make with this card. So, and Ida's like probably a 3.5 also, right? What'd you say?
Yeah. It's like a 3.5.
Yep. Next card. Sorry, go on.
Card.
So,
this is the
Wheel of Fortune. Yeah, this is the last card in the set. We actually made really good time. Hour 14 minutes. Not bad. Wheel of Fortune. Damage an enemy unit by a random amount between 1 and 10.
I hate this card. To be honest, I don't feel this card should be in a game like Gwent.
I hate it so much.
Because it's too random. Because you can get one, or you can just kill an engine with tactical advantage.
This is why I hate this card. If this was straight up unplayable, I think I would hate it less. It's actually potentially in niche situations playable. And the situation I can see you playing this is basically an instant mulligan like 80% of the time, but if you draw this card on red coin in round 1 and your opponent buffs something with tactical advantage up to 8, just Wheel of Fortune, if you hit for 8, you got yourself like a cleaver basically for 5 provisions, and then you just win the game because you can very easily threaten to win on even. If you hit it for 1, so what? You're on red coin, you just played a 5 provision card for 1, burned the card, you can afford to play low tempo, right? And then in every other situation, of course, you mulligan this card immediately. But
yeah, because you don't want to play this card.
Yes,
but in red,
especially in round 3. Yeah, but like the fact that it might possibly see play because of that makes me absolutely hate this card. I think it's a feel bad card no matter what happens. If you high roll, your opponent feels awful. They feel like they got cheated from the game. If you low roll, you kind of feel awful. You feel like, assuming like in like a round 3 situation and you low roll and this card is 1 point, it's like, man, if it only hit for 5, I could have won the game. I just needed anything. It just feels bad no matter how you play it. Interesting note, though, also, it averages 5.5 points. If you, between 1 to 10, 10 plus 1 is 11, divide by 2, 5.5. So it's actually 0.5 points above the provision rate, which I find hilarious. But obviously the randomness makes it super unreliable.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
I will say this card by design is a 1, but by power it could be a 2 because it fulfills a niche.
I'm going to say it's... I don't think this will see much play because so many other cards in this faction are so strong. However, I think it's probably like a 1.5 or a 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give it like a 2. Because there is potential to actually play this and really blow people out in certain circumstances. So, yeah. I think we're done. That's the last card of the set.